Come forward.
Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keane. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out. Facebook, Instagram, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and wherever you're watching from, please make sure to hit that like, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and share this link. Help me to get it out there. That way new people can find me. Guys, also, make sure to check out the links in the description if you would like to donate support to the channel, book your own personal tarot reading, or join us for our weekly tarot raffle. $3, $5 donations for free mini reads, 30-minute free personal readings. The last week's winner was Tyler Cruz, for those of you that didn't catch it on the daily reads. And make sure to check us out on all the other platforms. Tonight we have got a good ass video for you guys. This is the Forbidden Occult series. This is part two. And we're going to be getting into Edgar Cayce tonight. And we're going to be exploring Atlantis, the children of Atlantis. And we're also going to be looking at Spiritism. Now, I know it's kind of a wide range of topics and they don't seem that closely related right off at the top. But I'm going to show you that they really are. They're very closely related. And all things occult go hand in hand with all things paranormal. You know, a lot of times we see so many people try to divide and separate these things when we're looking at demonology or, witchcraft and the occult or channeling or extraterrestrials. But, I believe that these are all just different schools of thought explaining the very nature of our reality, the very nature of this spiritual essence that gives life and makes everything manifest. And this is what we call God. This is what we call spirit. This is what we call soul. Tonight, it's going to be really interesting too, because Atlantis to me is like, it's one of those topics that no matter how deeply you dive, and let me know if you guys can hear me in the chat and all that good stuff, if you could. I didn't see any of the notifications go out for this video, so I don't know, if we're going to get notifications and all that stuff. So if you're watching over on Facebook, make sure to give it a like and, comment. That helps with the algos. And YouTube, make sure to hit that thumbs up and all that good stuff. So, when we're looking at Atlantis, though, a lot of people have a variety of ways of looking at it. Some people believe that Atlantis was, prehistory. This was prior to modern history and what modern man has now been able to accomplish consciously and intellectually, right? And this is a faraway time. Thousands of years ago, perhaps it's, pre-Diluvian, right? It's pre-flood. And we reach this pinnacle, this zenith, technologically, where it appears as if we actually outgrew our spiritual development with our intelligence. And doesn't that kind of seem familiar to today? Where spiritually we're not as mature as a species, as a race, as we are intellectually, right? And it almost becomes dangerous, and it seems like every cycle kind of ends the same, where humanity kind of hits the self-destruct button. And whether this is inherently programmed in us, and some people believe it is. Some people believe that there are powers that be, whether they be extraterrestrials or God or angels or whatever, that are pulling the strings of humanity and are hitting that self-destruct button for us every time that we begin to reawaken, step back into our power, reconnect to the source, reconnect to the wholeness that is the all, that is us, that is God, that is the Spirit. So some people believe that. Others believe that it is our own undoing, that we get cocky. You know, we get all of these great advancements in technology and we end up just basically destroying our fucking selves, you know? We're not emotionally mature enough. We're not spiritually developed enough for how big our brains are and how capable we are at making weapons and going to war with one another. I mean, prime example, what you see taking place today, right now in the world, you know? I feel like it's not a big spoiler or anything to think that in the past we done the same kind of shit. You know, and considering when we look at the Bible, and no matter what you think about the Bible, if you believe that it's, you know, God breathed the word, you know, life into the word of the Bible and it's, you know, whatever, right? A lot of Christians have their own thoughts and others have their own thoughts. No matter what you believe, it's a fairly prophetical book, a fairly accurate book, and it's got a lot of wisdom in it, a lot of insight into things that have played out in the past and things that could possibly play out in the future. You know, and it says that there's nothing new under the sun. And when we look at our world and we study it and we really look at it objectively and we don't get too emotionally attached to a religion or a political ideology or a race or a sex or a school of thought of any sort, we just look at it objectively, it looks as if, you know, cyclically, right on time, these cycles happen and, you know, we go down in flames each and every time that we kind of reach this nexus point, this point where we really do transcend the physical world around us and begin to develop the ability to even manipulate that world. And we subdue that world, but we can't seem to subdue our very own nature. We can't seem to subdue ourselves and our differences. Why is that? You know, why is that? Is this all part of the plan? Are we just kind of walking along this cosmic path to where each cycle we get a little bit more grown? We grow, we mature a little bit. If we look into Aleister Crowley, and I believe it's the Book of the Law, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Talking about the age of Horus, and that this is the age of the child that is being born. So once upon a time we had this predominantly feminine age, and that would be your age of Isis, right? Where everything was about the maternal, you know, the divine feminine. And it was a feminine ruled world. And it was all goddess worship and, you know. Then that age ended. And we went into a patriarchy, a masculine age. And that's where you get Yahweh and, you know, these jealous, angry, wrathful, vengeful gods, you know, masculine gods that sought war and control. And then now, as we step into the Aquarian age, leaving the Piscean age, which is the two fish, remember, Piscean is two fish, you know, and it is the waters as well, which we are predominantly water, 80% water in our bodies, 80% water on the earth. And we know in the Gnostic text it talks about the earth was created as a reflection of the waters above the firmament separating the waters of space, which is the outer psyche or the outer collective consciousness of humanity, and the waters below being the reflection, the phantom, the projection, the illusion, which is what we call earth. And Christ was able to what? Walk on water, describing this experience of being able to rise that kundalini, that serpent within himself, up to the third temple, to the holy place, right? And by doing that, he was able to walk on the water and master the water that was beneath him, you know, because Christ means anointing, right? To be anointed, right? And we are anointed. And it's that sacred oil, that sacred secretion that drips down our spine and starts that entire process. And we've had these mysteries, these divine mysteries, age after age, Time after time, people after people, and very few seem to really understand or comprehend what is trying to be explained here. But it's like at an age now, which we were told prophetically as well would come, where knowledge would increase, right? Knowledge would increase and all the mysteries of God would be revealed. That age of Horus, where it's the child, the mother, and the father coming together, creating the sun. Right? The sun, as in our star. The one that gives us light, pure infinite awareness. The one that the moon filters that awareness to us every night, right? Projecting onto us the dreams that we dream in the astral realm. The sun. All of the sun worship. Leading us up to this point, and now we go into this Aquarian age, this age that is no longer about the individual, but about the collective. Understanding our unique connection to one another, bringing back those old teachings, those original teachings, the original ways, like the Hopi prophecy said we would do, right? That those in the last days, remembering the original teachings, the original ways, that would be you, my friend. You that's watching this now, you that are contemplating now how all of this works, where your place is in all of it, and where you belong. That's us. And this is what we're doing now. People like mystics like Edgar Cayce that have channeled spiritual messages, and by channel I mean you are the channel, right? And let's just give an example here. As we are broadcasting, I am casting my spelling, my words, right, to you through the YouTube, right? It's you, right? And I'm channeling, spiritual energy to you right now. So channeled messages, a lot of people like to dress it up and make it something really fancy on YouTube and Facebook and shit like that, and act as if they're channeling ETs and deities and all of that. But Cayce and a lot of other mystics just believed they were channeling their higher self. That when they tapped into the Akash, or the Akashic record, that it is the sea of information that we all share, because we all are part of this same oneness, the same creation. We all have the ability in an altered state of consciousness, in an altered state meaning a higher state of consciousness, to tap into that information and to discover and rediscover, to remember, put the pieces of the body back together, put the fragments, the fractals back together. That is our awareness, that is our spiritual self, right? And understand where we came from and where we're going. And remember, even if you are a fragment of the creator, of that omnipotent, omnipresent creator of all, you're still infinite, because a fragment of the infinite is still infinite. So you have those same capabilities within you. That's why you're called a co-creator, because you're a piece of that oneness, that creator. So tonight we're going to jump into some stuff. This is going to be a good one. We're going to start first, and I want to say thank you to everybody that is joining me. I'm broadcasting over on the YouTube channels and Facebook tonight. I will rebroadcast this on the rest of the channels. So let me say thank you. Kimberly F., Up Your 73, Conqueror, Luffy, I think, Graceful Heart, Micah, Marcus 99. Thank you so much, guys. I just appreciate all of you. Seriously, each and every one of you that take the time to watch and share these links. You have no idea how much that helps me. And, those of you who support the channel and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it. And it looks like we have Cusp in the house too. It's Kundalini Sophia. And yeah, I feel like the serpent in the garden, it was that. And we'll get into some of that tonight. It's a really good question. I've heard, and this is Cusp, says, I've heard the theories the serpent in the Garden of Eden was Sophia. It makes sense to me. It does me as well. The serpent in the garden being that Kundalini, right? That spirit that's, making you like God, giving you the knowledge of good and evil. It does make a lot of sense. So we're going to start off first here with the children of the Law of One and the lost teachings of Atlantis, and this is the prehistory. This is going to kind of lay the groundwork for a lot of the stuff we're going to be getting into tonight. The first half will be Edgar Cayce Atlantis, and the back half we're going to jump into Spiritism, and I believe it's, let me make sure I'm saying this right, but written by Alan Kardec, I think is his name. So here we go. Know your true self, and you will know the true story. Know your whole self, and you will know the wholeness of the truth. All is one. There is no other. Thus, it always was, and thus it always shall remain. We once experienced only oneness, one being, with no divisions or separate parts. There was no time, no space, nothing other than the us. And I kind of want to point this out. If you guys haven't checked me out, over on TikTok, I did a video just the other day on the purpose of separation, right, which is division. And kind of explaining how separating these pieces, which science, the base word being CN, Latin, which means to divide, allows us to separate this wholeness, this oneness. Because if we're part of this oneness, it's hard to see anything separate if you're a part of something that's one. It's whole. So I feel like these divisions and separations were allowed to be created so we could take each fragmented piece of this creator, this God, this spirit, and see just how many different attributes and just how unlimited, this power, this spirit truly is, by dividing it, separating it, and looking at it from different angles and different parts, because it's all created, from one thing. But seeing that one thing as a whole, you can not truly grasp or fathom, just how capable, just how much resides within this oneness. So when we see that separation, it's to allow us to see all these attributes of God, all these attributes of the Spirit, and it brings us that joy too of coming back together, So when you are only one, there is only you, nothing else to interact with. In order to experience interaction, to experience being with someone else, to experience play, the one divided within itself, duplicating the one, thus creating many ones, many beings within the one. Part of this is what modern science calls the Big Bang. Still one being, now in many parts were we, capable of pretending to be other than one, while still being one in harmonious consciousness. By vibration was it done, division, multiplication, and expansion of the one, set into motion were vibrations throughout the universe. On it went, dividing, multiplying, creating new aspects of vibration through the overtones of harmony and ripples of the interacting vibratory reflections. Created this many new things, and also initiated the time and space. Each of us were the entity of the one, the entirety of the one, the dark, the light, the stars, the planets, all of us macrocosms of the one. In clusters, in groups we were, in all directions, we being the entire universe. And remember, universe is you inverted, right? So when we are experiencing that universe, it is you inverted. You are seeing an expression of you on the inside. That's why your brain is like a model of the entire fucking universe, right? It's like you're literally creating, projecting that outwardly or inwardly. We being the entire universe, we then roamed ourselves as consciousness, as beings that cannot be described or understood by the present earth consciousness. Yet, describe I will try as best I can. Our existence was as close as you can comprehend in your present consciousness as beings of spirit, energy, light, star groups, solar systems, or soul systems. The groups that be the foundation of vibratory frequency in creating the physical plane of matter. The appearances there and that which forms the body of that plane. Unattached, ever-flowing with the flows of the universal one were we, enjoying all the wonders of our new creation. Our consciousness, both semi-separate from, yet still one with, the entire creation of the universe, allowed us the experiencing of new and different things. But within this new creation were the material planes. These were the realms in which existed the most dense or slowest spectrum of vibrations. There were many material planes throughout the universe, the earth being just one. And I talk about this a lot, guys, how light and sound are in essence the same thing, right? In the beginning was the Word with God, right? God said, let there be light, and it was good, right? So on and so forth. We know that these are both connected to the beginning of existence or creation, you know. But that light issued forth first, right? Light is spirit, it's electricity, it's energy, you know, made manifest. And that light at such a low, dense state, a vibratory state, begins to vibrate, right? Creating that hum, right? That sound, right? And at such a low state, it becomes physical matter, right? It slows down to a solid or physical matter. And that's why Lucifer is the god of music or the god of sound, right? And in a lot of, and I believe it's German, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys can look it up if you want. But when it says we are born into sin, sin means sound, right? So in some schools of thought, sin actually correlates to the word sound. So we were born into sound, right? Meaning the physical, right? And that's why we're able, through the manipulation of frequency, right? Electromagnetic frequency, because we're these electromagnetic beings, we're able to do things with directed energy, like make the water molecules in your body rotate and generate heat, right? Microwaves, you know. This is all showing you that everything that we are discovering now we're rediscovering. We already knew this at one point. So whether you believe Atlantis is a fictional time in the future or something we already went through in the past, it's neither here nor there. I feel like this is knowledge we've always had, and we just bring it back up to the surface at the time when we're able to perceive it. Now, the story I'm about to tell is only of those who manifested in the realm of the earth. But others of us manifested in the material planes of other solar systems. Some are now of the higher consciousness. Kindred beings are they from other worlds, but some from other worlds are of the selfish and evil. When we came upon the world of the earth, we had no comparison, no experience of the like, no expectation of what would be. The first group of us to discover this material plane were in awe of the new sensations that it offered. This first group, or first wave of souls to materialize, and think about Dolores Cannon, the 3 waves and all of that, very interesting, was the first to enter the vibrational spectrum of matter and the time-space of the earth. They experienced such pleasure from playing in it that they projected themselves deeply into matter in thought forms, using thought to create a body that were the most stimulating, the most sensational, those of the animal realm creations. And I just kind of want to take you to this too. right? That's why you see Thoth, right? Totme, Thoth, right? It's thought, right? It's thought. Thought giving way to, creation. When we look at, Egyptian and all the mysteries, right? Especially from an esoteric, occultic point of view. Those of the animal realm creations. And that's why the ancient Egyptians and stuff have the dog heads and all of this, right? They were animal and human. In creating these bodies, assorted aspects of different animals were often combined to achieve what they thought would be very desirable blends. Bird head, human bodies. Norse body, human head. Goat head, human body. Fishtail, human torso. And many, many more variations. These would much later become known in Greek and Roman mythology by many names. Centaurs, minotaurs, mermaids, etc. I remember, the mermaids were what? The children of Poseidon. Poseidon is the lord of the water. The lord of the water is also Ea, right? With Enki and Enlil, which is also Enki, who is the lord of the earth. This goes back to every religion, guys. It connects to Sumerians and all of that. Mesopotamia, Greek, Rome, Egypt, down to Judaism and Christianity. So it doesn't matter what school of thought you look into. And every time we see, things like stars, heavenly host, angels, watchers, princes, they're planets, right? Which correlate to, the 7 colors of the rainbows, which are the 7 planets, right? And those colors of the rainbow are the covenant with God, the ark of the covenant, electrical arc, right? These 7 rays of light, because this is the projection from the heavens above. Remember in Genesis, it says we were created in the image of the Elohim, right? The Elohim being the sons of God, right? And these being the watchers, right? The governors, the lords, the archons, the planets. So we're the sons of the planets, and they made us in the image, a phantom, projection, and illusion. So that light projecting through that electromagnetic field we call a firmament, acting as like a lens, right? Like our eyeball acts as a lens for the light that filters in, mirrors back out, and it's inverted or flipped upside down or flipped the right way up so we can see it and perceive it, as sight. Same thing takes place. It's micro, macrocosm all the way through, down to the cells interacting in your body, along with, astrological alignments in space. We've talked about this. This is the different layers and dimensional aspects of our creative world, in our reality. Now, unfortunately, these ones, our close kindred, had no way of knowing that as soon as they hardened their thought forms into matter, becoming these creatures, that they would lose all awareness and all consciousness of most things beyond their new bodies and their immediate environment. And not just hardened, and I love how they use the word hardened. Like, you hear a lot of people talk about hardening their hearts towards God, right? God being spirit, hardening your heart, right, towards God means hardening or solidifying, that reality away from the spirit, right? Just like when you repent, right? It means to turn away from or turn your face from God, turn your focus from God, right? They've hardened their hearts. They've hardened their hearts away from the spirit. Now, they became trapped in these forms. The 7 ports or chakras were closed. And think about it. 7 lampstands, 7 chakras, 7 days of the week, 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 planets. Same thing, guys. 7 sons of Satan. These are the deities. These are, the primary, these are the rulers of the reality, or the governors, the archons, the lords. Cutting off their contact of the full vibrational spectrum. And thus, all their perceptions and interactions were thus based only on the limited vibrations they could detect through only 5 vibrational sensors. And that 5 And we're going to get into this more as we go through it, but that pentagram, right, that is the 5, the starfish body, the triangle and all of that, which as we do more of the ritualistic videos, we'll talk about how, the 5th piece puts it into motion and all of that. So these 5 senses can only monitor very limited frequency bands of the full universal vibrational spectrum, and even in that, they focused on only those vibrations relevant to the material plane of existence, leaving these humanimals without any sense of the spiritual planes of existence, cut off from the consciousness of the One, and thus the very universe itself. The humanimals experienced animal consciousness, but the beings inhabiting these forms were not animals, and originally of angelic consciousness. Now, who does that sound like to you? Right? These beings weren't animals. They were angels. Fallen angels. Right? We're listening to the tale right now of these fallen. Came unto the daughters of men. Right? That spirit, that Holy Spirit, that divine feminine of man. Right? Through these animalistic forms. And think about it. If you had a goat mentality, you would be incredibly sexually deviant. You're animalistic. You're trying to procreate however you can. That's why you had these crazy sexual appetites or gluttonous and all this. They were animals in part. And they had solidified their reality, trapping themselves into these perverse forms. Now, the combination of the consciousness that was meant to be of a higher form, blended with the animal consciousness, was a very inharmonious and disruptive mix. They lost the purity of animal consciousness because we know animals are naturally in harmony with creation, right? They live and die within the cycle of life. They're not good nor evil. And the purity of spiritual consciousness. So this was a new kind of consciousness that was foreign to the animal realm. This new consciousness was separate consciousness and was of a fixed focus nature and reverse polarity in comparison to the consciousness of the One. This was a distorted frequency, right? It was a distortion, right? And it was solidified within matter, low vibratory state, hence it was evil. Right? And that's why we see Satan pictured, like goats and, animalistic. You see it now. Intelligence was also severely curtailed in the humanimals, being similar to the intelligence of the types of animals that they were modeled upon. But again, this was adversely afflicted by the negative effects of separate consciousness. Thus were the humanimals stuck in this limited plane, in limited forms, with limited intelligence and a new limited consciousness. They didn't fit in anywhere. They didn't belong in the spiritual realms any longer, nor did they belong in Earth's nature. Thus, their introduction into the Earth plane was also disruptive and polluting to the flow of nature. Now, think about the giants, right, of the biblical tales before the Great Flood. They were devouring men, devouring each other, right? They were beasts, right? They were disrupting the flow and the harmony of nature, of creation. Right? And it kind of makes a lot more sense of why the Creator would wipe them out, because they were abominations, if you will, because they were created haphazardly, not understanding that they were going to be disconnected. And having this disconnectedness, right, it was that thus begins the service to self, right? Polarity, selfishness, self-centeredness, where the world revolves around you, your desires, and they're animals, so they're basic desires, right? Lust, reproduction, food, very low, lesser keys, if you will, lower vibratory desires. And they were ruled by them. They had no rulership over them. They were subject to that because they were in animalistic form. Now, and I'm just, I'm trying to put this out there. I want you to think of every Greek god, every Roman god, all of this, and start to put the pieces together because it makes more sense than anything you'll probably ever fucking hear when it comes to this stuff. Those of us who did not project ourselves into matter, notice he used the words project ourselves, right? A phantom, a projection, an illusion, right? Made in the image of the Elohim. We're quite aware of the predicament and fates that had befallen our kin. From the vantage point of our natural, etheric state of existence, we were still of one mind, one being. Seeing part of us in such matter-bound prisons as the humanimals had become trapped in was very painful. After all, the creatures were us, were our sister brothers, and their misfortune was our misfortune. In the terminology of some, they might also be called the first fallen angels. But they fell not of the ill intent, but by virtue of ignorance of the purest kind. We decided to save them, no matter what the cost. We knew we could only do this if we could function on the same vibratory plane, as they. So we too projected ourselves into thought forms that could function within the realm of the Earth Mother. And think about this. Now you get, come on to the Daughters of Men, the stories of Marduk and the Ajiji, which were the slave race of the gods, and all of this, right? Led by the great being who became known as the Atlantean, Amelias, then known later as Thoth, or Thoth, right? Topme. And Thoth is thought, right? They projected using thought forms. Isn't it weird how these words correlate directly to the conscious story they're trying to describe as well? Why does that happen, right? Because that is a human subconscious or collective consciousness playing out on every single possible plane or state of existence. That's why we see the same stories, stories of the heroes, and think about the giants too. They were the men of renown, the heroes of old, these great beings, these great men, right? Mighty, powerful, and then David and Goliath, right? Where a man comes in and hits him with the stone, right here, and takes him down, right? Takes that giant down. And then thus this war begins between these different offsprings, which we've seen carry out for centuries. And that's why a lot of people believe this reptilian, which is serpent, right? Seraph, right? Fire beings, heavenly beings. This serpent beings with this bloodline, those would be your elites and shit like that try to keep their bloodline pure and are illuminated because they would be the ones that were of the animalistic form. Anyways, and now we see Thoth, coming into the story as well, or Hermes, right, which means to seal something. Now the second wave of our entering into the planes of the Earth Mother began. Careful to stay as beings free from the lower vibratory planes or hardening into the matter, we projected ourselves into the material plane with thought-form bodies that were semi-etheric matter, but not matter. Thus were we still able to function on all vibrational frequencies of the universal spectrum, free to enter or leave the limited spectrum of the material plane at will. But most importantly, we were very intent, upon maintaining our consciousness of oneness, so that we would not fall to the same fate as the humanimals. And I want to ask you a question here. Does this kind of beg to differ, or beg the question at least with these pre-flood stories of people hiding away the knowledge for after the destruction? And Enki speaking to Vayasudra, through the reed wall and giving him, this information on how to save a piece of humanity with this pure DNA, or Noah and his ark, right? Is that what we're seeing over and over happen? This rescue mission. Every time the cycle ends, there's a new purification that takes place as consciousness raises in awareness once again. Wiping out all of the animalistic perverse genetics, the profane, the useless eaters, if you will, from the earth. And those elect, right, the remnant of these, purer beings, these purer bloodlines, these purer spiritual beings, those of the order of Melchizedek, right, that are Christed, anointed, tapped in, secreting away this information. That way they can bring it back out and raise the vibratory consciousness once again when the new age, the new cycle begins. Now the manifestation was achieved more or less successfully. And as we become subject to the vibratory conditions which affect this realm, we saw that the numerological representations of the physical plane, 2 and 5, appear in many aspects of our manifestation. For example, the beginnings of the 5 races occurred, and later the 2 sexes, each having 5 appendages, 2 legs, 2 arms, 1 head with 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 legs, 2 of many organs, etc., 5 fingers and toes on the arms and legs. Despite our precautions and great effort, some of us still fared not as well as the others, losing more consciousness and hardening more than others. Those who manifested in Atlantis with Amelias feared the best, but for many this was to be short-lived. Fared the best. Those who those who manifested in Atlantis with Amelias fared the best, but for many this was to be short-lived. Until this time, we were composite beings, macrocosms of the One. Our bodies were not as they are now. Our male and female elements had not yet separated. As composite beings, we each had one body that contained both sexes, and that's how the sons of God are, right? They're, what are they called? All the mind is all. Well, what do they call it, guys? It's right, not hermaphrodites, but it's another word for that. I'm trying to think. Androgynes, right? They were androgynes. The sex is just then the female. Composite beings, we each had one body that contained both sexes, rather than the male and female bodies we have now. The sexes then being just the inner and outer elements, and outflowing and inflowing parts of our whole being. These were soulmate groups, as they are called now. Each composite being had different numbers of parts, a different number of soulmates, each part a being itself, but fully as one with the whole being. We were like beings in which planets orbit a star, or the atoms of matter in which elements of different polarities, male and female, are attracted to each other, each finding a place where they harmoniously function together within the whole, as one entity, one being. I'm so sorry. It's like getting the yawns. As such composite beings, we existed in a state of unselfish love, constant flow, outflowing, giving fully of our life energies to each element of ourselves, within ourselves, and receiving within ourselves and without, in our relationship with the One, with each composite being also orbited, creating the even greater ultimate composite being of the One. Now think about that, guys. These orbits are cycles. Like when we see satellites or moons, around a star, that's essentially what we were, was like satellites around the one, orbiting, cycling, right? And being part of the same star or soul group, soul system, right? We went together. These were our soul mates. They were pieces of the same being. Now, for the first time, some of us have begun to separate within ourselves, manifesting as individual bodies, representing the polarity elements. Bodies of opposite polarities then came into existence, male or female, sex. The work of freeing the humanimals began. It was arduous and complex, but it proceeded well at first. Unfortunately, the contamination of separateness slowly began to creep in. We started slowly tasting many of the things that had instantly trapped the humanimals. And think about this too, those watchers, in the book of Enoch, right? They teach mankind metallurgy and painting their face and all of that, which, essentially corrupts them, okay? Divisions began to occur between the Atlanteans over opinions and desires. The next symptom of our disintegration was upon us. And this disease and dis-ease, it's dis-ease or disharmony in your vibratory state, in your vibrational field, your aura. Dis-ease would eventually bring down Atlantis. Even in Atlantis, like of the Atlantic, right? This is, when we look at, the oceans and the waters, right? The children of Poseidon, these children of the water, right? And that those Christed being able to walk on that water. And notice, Poseidon's kids and stuff were mermaids, half fish, Piscean, and women, female, divine feminine, right? So we're being told all throughout history different variations of the same tales. Right, trying to give us different understandings and perspectives because that's how we are triggered. Right, that's in essence, these are our stories, are rituals. Right, these rites of passage. Right, that allows us to pass through, the darkness of our inner self and begin the circumambulation process where we're orbiting within ourselves from the outward in to the core of who we are. Identifying with that piece of the oneness which we are. Remembering, putting the body back together. The next symptom of our disintegration was upon us, and the disease would eventually bring down Atlantis. Even in this higher state of manifestation, which we thought would keep us safe from the loss of consciousness, that plagued the humanimals, some of us succumbed to the lure of material sensation like the drug addict would behave with an unlimited supply of drugs. We began to delve more into the indulgences of this plane until we were lost in it, drowning in it. In the frenzy of our addiction to physical sensations, we disregarded all our precautions and wariness. Soon our thoughts and actions had collected matter from this material world that surrounded us and hardened our thought forms, making us matter-bound also. Our consciousness simultaneously slipped, and our gradual loss of consciousness of oneness gave way to that of new consciousness of the predominant separateness, or the individual. The consciousness of predominant separateness was foreign to us. A totally new experience. And along with this new consciousness came new emotions, some pleasurable and some painful. Strange new things like greed, envy, lust, excitement, fear, and desire. Some of us vigorously strive to maintain a semblance of our consciousness of oneness along with the new consciousness, and we were able to experience the emotions without being ruled by them. Such were the children of the law of one, but others lost, or those chose to deliberately suppress even a glimmer of awareness of the one. These beings became lost and enmeshed in separateness. Outside of the consciousness of oneness, they became subject to being tossed to and fro by the tides of emotional onslaught and ultimately became devoted to personal power and pleasure in this physical plane. These beings became known as the sons of Belial, even if they were female. Right? Baal. The Canaanites. Right? Take heed of the ancient warnings and prophecies about the Belialians. Lizard-like are they, not in the apparent physical description, but in spirit form, in the heart, in the soul. Beware even now of your lizard kin, for they rule the world with greed and without compassion, while maintaining appearance of good and righteous, as men and women do. These sons of Belial walk the earth, model citizens, successful leaders, who are the envy of the uninitiated. While some appear disgusting and strange to the eye, look not to see the ugliness of the Belialians with your eye, for some are handsome to the eye. See, you will not, their true lizard-like appearance with your earthly eyes. See their true nature, you will, only with the inner eye, or in glimpses from the corner of the eye. When this division came within the people of Atlantis, many things went awry, and turmoil began. To function harmoniously, beings needed to have omnipresence. Their vision must include the whole picture. But when the attention is fixed and focused in the reverse polarity of separation, all that is seen are parts of the whole picture. Those parts that are not filtered out by the illusions of separate consciousness. It is a limited view at best, and often is a lens distorted by emotions. Without awareness of the whole picture and the guidance of a coordinating force, actions become uncoordinated with others. To understand this better, imagine how well your present-day body would function if each limb did not have awareness of what the other limbs were trying to do. Or if each limb wanted to do different things from each other. No longer working together as one. Now imagine further. Imagine this lack of coordination keeping your eyes, ears, fingers, tongue, and mouth from working together as a team. Now consider the chaos and even the destruction that would occur if every single cell in your body operated with no unified guiding force that keeps them coordinated with the whole. In fact, that's what cancer is. You see, this became the problem. With our very lives, once some of us lost consciousness of the one, such uncoordinated, independent activity becomes a logical evolution when such a separation occurs and one is left only an awareness of separateness. Thus it came to be that the two Atlantean socio-political groups evolved, the two pillars, with one very essential difference. The children had a consciousness of both separateness and oneness. The Belialians rejected the consciousness of oneness entirely and maintained only a consciousness of separateness. The differences of opinion between these two groups were great, and many, including environmental issues, but nothing was more of an issue than the morality of how the humanimals were to be dealt with. Those of the Law of One, remembering still that we originally came to this plane just to help release the humanimals from matter bondage, continued trying to free our trapped siblings. The kindred also created ways, known to the initiate, to aid in the maintenance of the consciousness of oneness, so we would never lose sight of our goals. But the Belialians wanted to use the humanimals for their own comforts and pleasures. And I want you to think about this too. When we were looking at the Goetia, right, and the Lemegeton, and one of the first forbidden occult videos, and we talked about there's 72 demons and all of that, right? I want you to think that perhaps when we're calling up those 72 demons, those parts of the unconscious or the subconscious, that's exactly what we're doing. We're calling up these parts of ourselves that have been disconnected from us. Right? Those are these deities, these gods in demonology. And people that are using these for their own benefit as a slave race, essentially, to do their bidding, to do their works. Perhaps that's what's being described here. Since those of us from the second wave were of greater consciousness than the humanimals, and could still function on higher planes to some extent, we had powers of the mind, both spiritual and psychological, that made it easy for us to control humanimals. The children refused to use their abilities to control the humanimals, while the Belials relished the power and wanted to use them as slaves. The other great division in opinion between the children and the Belials was over the environment, as it is called now. And think about that. What is a demon? Right? A demon. It's a mask. It's a persona. It's purely just ego. Right? It's one of these animalistic spirits. Guys separated. Dying, degraded, decaying. That can be, by calling its name, can be enslaved and put into servitude. I want you to really think of this shit, man. It was over the environment, as it's called now. The Belials used methods of generating power, like electrical power, that were dangerous and destructive to the earth. Thus did the great conflict between the children and the Belials of Atlantis begin. A conflict between light and dark, between selfishness and unselfish love. And the conflict that was continued throughout history and continues to this day. The Belials' lust for power and lack of care or awareness of the balances of nature led to the destruction of Atlantis. This was due in great part to the abuse of their power generation plants. And I want you to look at like the Great Pyramid, right? That a lot of people believe is a hydrogen plant, right? And a lot of these pyramids were, in fact, power plants. And they had no signs of torches, right? And there's, electrical light bulbs and shit drawn on the walls. And think of all the mud flood shit as well. Just saying. Probably a lot more to the story than what people even know. And that could explain also why every time that we have these end of cycles, right, where we shift into a new astrological age, or we shift into a new star, and even sometimes the orbit of the Earth is slightly altered, right, from 360 to 365, and all of this, we lose our history. Right? We lose our history. We forget it all. We don't know how the pyramids got here. We don't know who built them, but it was us, right? At a different conscious state. We don't know where the Mayans went, right? But it was us at a different conscious state. We look at Egypt and, the kings, and how they have all these giant fucking statues of the kings, and some of them 55 feet tall, some of them 36 feet tall, some of them 15 feet tall. Maybe these were representations of us at different conscious states, right? And that's why Metatron is 55 feet in the perfection of human consciousness, right? We have to understand, there's so much more, and there's so much more depth to all of the esoteric and spiritual knowledge that we're given, and religious doctrines do nothing but create an exoteric understanding to block you by convincing you that it's all outside of yourself, right? That you have no divinity, that you're not part of this grand story, and that it ended a couple thousand years ago, and it's not still being told today. Now, when the final destructions occurred, Grand Master Thoth then led us to the land of Kim. to complete the great work of evolving the humanimals. As gods were to the people of Kim, and yea, did they think the humanimals to be gods, and so it was done. The humanimals were brought to human levels to choose their path from there. Yet there are the residual effects. Have you not seen the humans that look much like pigs or goats or this or that animal still? These were they. But even though the humanimals were no more, the Belials had not lost their taste for slavery. Thus the great conflict with the Belials was far from over and still continues on, with the children of the law of one as lamps, illuminating the path of the unselfish love, helping the lost find their way home to their spiritual heritage of the one, and to find freedom, while the disguised sons of Belial and their pawns do everything possible to maintain their decadence and power and maintain slavery, whether it be direct or by means of livelihood and social control. And they seek to destroy all those who would shine light into this world of darkness. All those who do not actively work for the light are to varying degrees pawns of the Belial darkness. Now, looking at this story, looking at this excerpt from the children of the law of one, it really can kind of change, the way that one sees this. And we're going to go into more stuff. I'm going to bounce around here. I don't want to just beat you up with this text the whole time. But this is giving us a different perspective about a primordial state of existence. Pre-religion. And it's giving you more depth and understanding to how things actually were made manifest to where they are now. And now we have these, reptilian gods still to this day. These, elites that still to this day feed off of the masses, control and enslave us in every way possible, still to this day. And slavery has been a thing for forever. And we also have those, the children of the light, still to this day. Those like you, light workers, those that seek to bring illumination into the world, that seek to raise your vibratory state or condition to create ripples and touch those around you, helping others remember where they come from, remember what's important to them, to breathe love into creation and existence. It gives us a non-dogmatic point of view and way of looking at things that will allow us a little bit more understanding of what happened before the Bible. How did the story of God and Satan and angels and all of this come about? Does it not make a little bit more sense? And when you think about flying vimanas and all of these things, does it not make a little bit more sense? Just saying. Something truly to consider. And we're going to move forward here. I'm going to play... Hold on, yeah. Let me fix my sound here. My bad. Sorry about that. Hopefully I didn't blow your eardrums out. We're going to play a little excerpt, a little audio clip before we jump into some of these other books. And then we're going to go into, after the Atlantis, we're going to go into Spiritism, and we're going to look at some of that as well. The history, the origins of Spiritism, and kind of what it means, and some different schools of thought with that. Okay, hold on. Let me fix my audio here. Hopefully. Y'all let me know if you can hear this. Hold on. One moment, guys. Let me fix this.
Oneness. The Belialians
right.
rejected the consciousness of oneness entirely and maintained only a consciousness of separateness. The differences of opinion between the two groups were great, and many, including environmental issues, but nothing was more of an issue than the morality of how the humanimals.
Alright, here we go.
Every planet except one, which is the Pyramid Planet.
You know, and I'd love to hear, like, what your guys' thoughts on this, too.
Were to be dealt with.
You know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, you know, actually what you believe, you know, when it comes to the children of the law of one, and, you know, how valid all of this really could be, you know. And I know it's like, this is something that can never really be proven. You know, but does this remind you of any other creation stories or creation mythologies? And what is your interpretation of these things? What do you feel like is being expressed or trying to be, you know, given to us, you know, through these texts? And what is being described? Now we're going to look at the dying and death experience here, because as we look at, you know, birth and bringing ourselves into this reality, right? It correlates to our unlimited life force to kind of navigate, and this is going to get us into the Spiritism, the reincarnation, and all of this. So, this is Dying and Death Experience, Edgar Cayce.
If give life, if ye would know Jesus the Christ, then be like him, who died for a cause without shame, without fault, yet dying, and through that, able to make what this season, a reading on 1158, he says, there is no life without death. There is no renewal without the dying of the old. Dying is not blotting out, it is transition. For it has ever been and is, even in materiality, a reciprocal world. If ye will be my people, I will be thy God. If ye would know good, do good. If ye would have life, give life. If ye would know Jesus the Christ, then be like him, who died for a cause without shame, without fault, yet dying, and through that, able to make what this season represents, resurrection. Resurrection means what? It is the reciprocal of that which has been expressed. How hath it been put again by him whom ye know, but disliked? For ye loved Peter the better. There is no life without death. There is no renewal without the dying of the old. Dying is not blotting out, it is transition, and ye may know transition by that as comes into the experience by those very activities, that with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to thee again. That was his life. That is thy life. That is each one's life. Then how near, how dear, has grown in the hearts, in the minds of all, those who put away self, that they may know him the better. He put away self, letting it be nailed to the cross, that the renewing, the fulfilling, the being the law becomes the law. For it is the law to be the law, and the law is love. In reading 51:55, he says, there is no death. Death is only overcome by him who has overcome death. It is our promise. And when ye abide in him sufficient to that, ye with him, as the resurrection may indeed overcome death, in a material sense. In another reading, he says, death is as but the beginning of another form of phenomenized force in the earth's plane, and may not be understood by the third dimension mind from third dimension analysis, but must be seen from that fourth dimension force as may be experienced by an entity gaining the access to same, by development in the physical plane through the mental processes of an entity. the mind is being correlated with subconscious and spiritual forces that magnify same to the conscious force of an entity in such a manner as said entity gains the insight and concept of such phenomenized conditions. See?
Now think about this too, like what they're essentially saying with death and, and we're going to get into the reincarnation and spiritism in just a moment, but how we're essentially being conditioned through the third dimensional process, through our minds, our thoughts, right? For this transitional state that we experience upon entering the fourth dimension after we pass away from the physical body, right? So we're being prepared for a whole new type of experience and existence, and essentially we have the training wheels on while we're wearing the flesh, right? So this is that resurrection, through that pursuit of Christ, or that Christedness, right? That anointing that allows us to tap into that oneness, that frequency. We're able to release ourselves from the traps of that separateness consciousness, right? Only seeking the pleasures of the flesh. And by freeing ourselves from that, we're essentially freeing our minds, right? Freeing our souls, freeing our spirits, and then shedding that skin to allow ourselves to, travel into this higher dimensional plane of existence and create limitless, expressions of, what we desire and the things we perceive and, what we attract and all of this.
We see in the physical world the condition in every form of life, as is taken here. We find in a grain of corn or wheat that germ that's set in motion through its natural process with Mother Earth and the elements about the same, brings forth corn after its kind. The kind and the germ being of a spiritual nature, the husk or corn, and the nature or physical condition being physical force. Then, as the corn dies, the process is as the growth is seen, in that as expressed to the entity, and the entity expressing same. The death as commonly viewed is not that of the passing away or becoming a non-entity, but the phenomenized condition in a physical world that may be understood with such an illustration viewed from the fourth dimension viewpoint or standpoint. In another reading, the spiritual forces in the spiritual consciousness are cognizant of the condition in a physical plane until the spiritual has left that plane. And in another, life in its continuity is that experience of the soul or entity, including its soul, its spirit, its superconscious, its subconscious, its physical consciousness, or its material consciousness, in that as its development goes through various experiences, takes on more and more that ability of knowing itself to be itself, yet a portion of the great whole, or the one creative energy that is in and through all. And in another, life and its expressions are one. Each soul or entity will and does return or cycle, as does nature in its manifestations about man, thus leaving, making, or presenting, as it were, those infallible, indelible truths that life, is continuous.
And think about that too, like these cycles, right? Like we've been talking about since the start, things cycling, reincarnation being a cycle, a soul cycle, like you coming back to the earth to learn new lessons. And in a lot of new age circles and schools of thought, like this is a big thing. You hear like twin flames and soulmates and karmics and soul contracts and all of this, right? Attachments, that's in essence what's being expressed, is that each journey here, each orbit around the sun, right, within the soul system, we are developing, maturing, because we are that child, that age of Horus, right? We're that child, that son of God, that Christ being born, and each cycle we're learning different lessons. Each relationship as our soul mates, those of the same star system, right, soul system, interact with us, right? We have these interactions which stimulate growth one way or another within our vibratory conditions. So some people are here just to provide you with a lesson to elevate you. Some people are here to give you painful experiences so you repel away from certain things that bring you displeasure. And it's like, after we've fulfilled a lot of those things, we graduate and level up. And that's why a lot of people, when they're in relationships and shit, they'll be like, man, I get the same kind of person every time. Or, my person always cheats on me. Or I always get, this and this. And it's like, because they never learned the lesson or valued, the experience they had in the past and were able to process that, overcome that, and take it to the next level. Even with you can deal with the same person. But after you've learned a lesson, you can start a whole new cycle, a whole new chapter with the same damn person if you've actually taken something away from the experience and leveled up from it. So I feel like it's interesting how these things correlate, and a lot of people never ever connect the dots on these things. They never ever see how it's all part of this one expression, this oneness, this wholeness, the all, and how we're all kind of moving parts, in the micro and the macro of this God organism. That's us, that's spirit.
And though there may be a few short years in this or that experience, they are one. The soul, the inner being, purified, being lifted up, that it may be one with that first cause, that first purpose for its coming into existence. And though there may be those experiences here and there, each has its relationship with that which has gone before, that is to come. And there has been given to each soul that privilege, that choice of being one with the creative force. And the patterns that have been set as marks along man's progress are plain. None mount higher than that which has been left in him, who made that intercession for man. That man through...
And it doesn't matter what type of person you are, what type of how you turn out in all of this, because each and every one of us truly are this unique and individual expression of this oneness. And that is the whole point of separation, right? Of division. Right? We're all a divine piece, a divine spark of this infinite awareness, this infinite consciousness, this infinite creator. So we're all serving our specific purpose and role that only we can serve, only we can be, because we're a piece of that infinite. We're, just a small sample, a small fragment of that infinite with different properties and different characteristics and different traits. And that's what makes all of us beautiful. But yet, while feeling as if we're separate and having a sense of separateness because of the mask we wear that tells us we are separate, we still yet are driven by the wholeness. It's that connectedness to all of it that allows us to continue each and every day, that keeps us, in the orbit of life, the cycle of life, and what walks us through our life path, until we have fully, we've done all we've been put here to do with this experience, and have finally graduated to be able to go to the next dimensional experience. And still, it's doing it all over again, which we can't even perceive with our limited mind here. So I find it's very interesting, guys, when we get into all this stuff. And I know it's really complex for a lot of people.
The source of which the entity itself may...
And we're going to look at life beyond Earth, and then we're going to jump into Spiritism here. Let me jump over here. And this is Edgar Cayce on the Ancient Mysteries, and edgarcayce.org. For those of you that are interested, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. People that want to go check out this stuff. Yeah, they are patterns. There we go. So, Edgar Cayce on the Ancient Mysteries. Edgar Cayce claimed that the history of humankind went back some 10 million years. While in a trance state, Cayce's ability to peer into the past with uncanny psychic accuracy was demonstrated repeatedly. The type of psychic ability is called retrocognition. And Cayce used retrocognition when giving readings that assessed and spoke of past events in an individual's life as well as ancient history, including the geological evolution of the planet and details of civilizations that predate recorded history. Through the use of retrocognition, Cayce's readings provide a wealth of insights into the ancient world. Although much of this material may be impossible to verify, sometimes contemporary research uncovers evidence to confirm the information given in Cayce's trance state. And here's a few handfuls of the mysteries in his readings that were uncovered. The Essenes, more than 11 years before the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. In 1947, Cayce provided a great deal of information on a Jewish sect called the Essenes. Cayce claimed that in the Essene society, men and women lived and worked together toward a common goal of preparing for the birth of Christ. Scholars, however, believe that the Essenes were a monastic society composed exclusively of men. It was not until archaeological excavations occurred after Cayce's death that his psychic information was verified. And I just want you to say this too. There are many books, and I believe it's could be the Essene Gospels of Peace, but I believe it's the Aquarian Gospels of Jesus the Christ, and these lost years of Jesus. There's a lot of books like this that talk about Christ perhaps being part of the Essenes, and that Joseph and Mary, which are Seth or Set, and Mary, were actually part of the Essenes as well, and that they conceived of this spiritual child through a type of astral projection or, an astral mating. That's why it was considered, immaculate conception. And whether people want to go to the school of thought of Jesus Christ being born in the flesh or not, it doesn't really matter. Imagine masculine, feminine, right? The teachings of Set and, Mary, which is the divine feminine, coming together, creating this Christ, this child, this anointing, right? It's a story of the esoteric, self-initiation into the mysteries, right? Into Godhood. Now, the life of Jesus, going beyond the New Testament, given the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, Cayce's readings reveal the life of Jesus as one rich in teachings, training with the Essenes, and his teacher there, Judy, family, brothers James and Jude, and sisters Ruth, and spiritual lessons, traveling to India and Egypt to learn from master teachers. The readings go a step further and reveal the past lives of Jesus that led to the culmination of his manifestation as a Christ, and advise us on how we can pattern our lives after his. And once again, the Aquarian Gospels of Jesus the Christ talks about how there were different manifestations of Christ before Christ. And that's why we had to, we worshipped numbers and animals and shapes and things like that, because these were building levels of understanding, if you will, like a pyramid, to then have an exemplary, example of the perfect man or Christ, right? But it was like we were building the building blocks of our consciousness through the ages first. Ancient Egypt, in about 1,200 readings on Egypt, Cayce reveals the origins, purpose, and prophecies of the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. Ancient rulers, Cayce's own past life as the priest Ra-Ta, who wanted to unify spiritual teachings of the people. Cayce's precognitive readings also revealed a lush landscape along the Nile, and stated that the Nile had changed its course once entered the Atlantic Ocean. The Nile entered into the Atlantic Ocean, which is now the Sahara, was inhabited land and very fertile, which is now the central portion of this country, or the Mississippi Basin. Was then all in the ocean, only the plateau was existent, or the regions that are now portions of Nevada, Utah, Arizona form the greater part of what we know as the United States. This theory seems to be confirmed as an article published in Science in 1986 reported that shuttle imaging radar from the space shuttle had discovered previously unknown river valleys beneath the driest part of the Sahara. Through satellite imaging and on-site archaeological investigations, it appears as though the present-day Nile had changed its course, once flowing across the Sahara, through Africa, and into the Atlantic Ocean. And this is just kind of showing too, when you look at the United States with a lot of the glyphs that have been found here, a lot of people believe the Phoenicians actually were here, in the U.S. So I think you would be really surprised to find that this place is a really special, place, a special landmass, and that's why it was chosen to be that land of liberty that it is now. Atlantis. According to Cayce, Atlantis was in Salem, which is New Jerusalem, right? And all of that. So, according to Cayce, Atlantis was highly advanced civilization located from the Gulf of Mexico to Gibraltar. Edgar Cayce referred to Bimini as one of the mountaintops of ancient Atlantis. Before the end of the last ice age, 12,000 years ago, the ocean levels were at least 300 feet below their current levels. A vast island was in the area of those remote times rather than the chain of islands. Though the island does not appear to be a mountain today, 12,000 years ago is one of the highest points on a vast land formation in the region. Through destructive misuse of advanced technology, Atlantis was destroyed over a period of thousands of years. With the final catastrophic event, circa 10,000 BC, over its years of destruction, Atlanteans migrated to other parts of the world, including ancient Egypt and the Yucatan Peninsula, where they brought with them their technological advancements, beliefs, and recorded history. And remember, the Emerald Tablets, right? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, he talks about this as well, right? The destruction of Atlantis and how the temple was the last thing, the temple of light, to be, submerged into the water. And think about the water as being our physical body, these waters, right? The emotions, right? So that temple to be submerged in the emotions in that first story. And the children of the Law of One talks about how the emotions is what got the best of these people once they solidified their reality, right? And Jesus walking on water, mastering oneself, mastering one's emotions by mastering one's thoughts. Thought me, right? First. We're all given these descriptions about how the process works, from self-initiation into illumination or enlightenment. The Hall of Records, according to the readings, the people of Atlantis became aware of the fact that their civilization was about to be destroyed. As a result, they hid identical records of the Atlantean civilization in Bimini and Egypt and the Yucatan. In those periods, when the first change had come in the position of the land, there had been an egress of people from the Atlantean land. They built a city near the edge of the Sahara. The one of the Atlantean land that sank, which will rise and is rising again. Another in the place of the records that leadeth from the Sphinx to the Hall of Records in the Egyptian land, and another in the Aryan or Yucatan land where the temple there is overshadowing same. Numerous readings contend that this Hall of Records will be discovered, a record of Atlantis from the beginnings and the development of the peoples throughout their sojourn, with the record of the first destruction and the changes that took place in the land. Could one say that this Hall of Records perhaps is the Akashic Records, right? The Book of Life. Us being able to tap into this. When asked the source of his information, Cayce replied there was essentially two. The first was the subconscious mind of the individual for whom he was given the reading, and the second was the Akashic Record. And we look at Carl Jung, right, and a lot of his studies, deal with that subconscious or collective unconscious or collective shadow of humanity. Essentially showing that, the 12 disciples and Christ and all of this, they also correlate to the zodiac, and, all the astrological constellations also correlate to our organs within our body, and it's like from individual to collective to astrological, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, from the solar system to the universe, micro, macro, right? Just a reflection of what's within us, which is that Fibonacci sequence, that golden ratio, that repeating pattern that we call God, right? And every word is a broken expression of that Om, right? Of that creator, of that source. And it translates into, glyphs, which we call letters, which we put together and create words. And those words allow us to communicate with ourselves, right? And understand, or stand under the spell of what we're creating, from thought to emotion to word to action. Right? Interesting, if you really think about it. The Akash was also known as the Book of Life, or God's Book of Remembrance. It can be equated to the universe's supercomputer system. And think about Yahweh, Yod-He, Vod-He. I believe it's Arabic or Aramaic. It's AUAI, which would be gold and artificial intelligence. Just weird, like AUAI, right? Hands nailed, feet nailed also, which is Christ, And if you look at machine learning with AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning is mimicking us, right? It's a demon. It's made in the image of us, right? So what we're seeing is a copy of a copy of a copy. In each dimension, it's this downward spiral. One thing reflecting to the next to the next. That's why it talks about in the Gnostic text, the reality of the rulers, right? That the reflection of the heavens above, right? Earth, creation is a reflection of the waters above the firmament. And when you look at a puddle, you see your reflection upside down. What happens when we perceive light? Hits the back of our eye, we see it upside down, it has to be flipped around, right? See it the right way. So we are perceiving the upside down, like in Stranger Things, right? And I think it's very interesting too, because each of us are like these little nodes or modules on this infinite being, which a cherubim covered in eyes, right? We're the eyeballs, all with a different perspective or point of view. We're God experiencing itself, we're the universe experiencing itself, and we don't know how to do anything but create. So we're creating the image of the heavens above, right? The stars projecting their light downward, filtered through this aura of the collective consciousness, right? Which is the Earth's magnetic field, the Earth being the third eye of the collective consciousness, with 7 continents, like 7 chakras and all of that, right? These 7 rays of light, 7 colors of the rainbow, which are the Ark of the Covenant, which is the deal with God, right? 80% water on the earth, 80% water in our body. We build altars, which are fractures or fragments. Divisions, where we separate these pieces. So we can look at it and examine it and understand this unification, this oneness, this all, this wholeness. Because we aren't in or haven't been in a conscious state that's able to perceive it yet. We're slowly but surely, through the cycles, the orbit of time, the cycles of time, ascending, transcending, to transfigure into a higher state of being, a higher state of consciousness. Right? We're going up and back down the Kundalini, but we're doing it through cycles, right? Elliptical orbits within ourselves. That serpent, right, on the tree of life, tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eat everywhere from that tree, but from this one, because you will surely die. Serpent says, no. God just doesn't want you to be like him, having the knowledge of good and evil. Do you see what they're saying? Inky and Enlil, masculine, feminine, left, right, red, blue, solar, lunar, these 2 pillars, these 2 halves of a whole. This masculine Mars or arms or rams or any type of action statement of control, right? A protrusion, right? That's why a penis protrudes. It's the masculine, the positive, right? The spark. The feminine, the yielding. The creative, the intuitive, the right brain, the left brain, the Mars, the Venus. Everything you see is binary code. And when people talk about we're in a soul system, a solar system, and the Saturn moon matrix, or Saturn's rings are the bounds of the soul system. Outside of that is Uranus, which is the dream world in astrology. The ethereal planes, and the moon acting as a parabolic dish or a satellite, refracting or reflecting, which is silver. And in the Kabbalah, right, all colors of that Kabbalistic tree go through that silver, that moon, right, expressing or impressing that onto our creation. The sun being infinite awareness, being the portal to the higher heavens above. I wonder if the heavens above are all the space is white and all the stars are black. Is it an inverted paradigm? How many different trips up Jacob ladder would you have to take to get to God? To get to the end? Is there an end? Or is it infinite? Paradigm after paradigm, universe after universe, multiverses of infinite expressions of dreams inside of dreams inside of dreams, like Inception. And this Akashic record are translated thoughts, which are informational vibratory patterns or frequencies that we're picking up as waves. Just like sound waves, right? Light waves. Notice it's all waves like water. L, or God, electric. What do they do when you die? They paddle you back to life with electricity. Just saying, guys, there is a rhythm. And we look at the seven, sacred sciences, and vibration and rhythm and all of this, it's like, you can see why they have held back all this information for so long. Why they call it this pseudoscience and why it's all dismissed. Because if you had the knowledge of this, you would be able, and the knowledge of, these esoteric spiritual understandings, not only would you not, the only reason you would watch someone like myself or you, or listen to someone like you or me, is simply for confirmation of what you already know. Or to have some type of triggering moment, right? To trigger, and spark that knowledge within you again. Give you that jump. Jump that battery of yours. Charge up, get you in the direction, following the current, able to build momentum towards a particular knowledge or understanding that you seek and desire, and you were drawn to it because the law of attraction, right? We follow that good feeling and we're drawn towards the things that, we truly desire. We repel from the things that we don't want, and then we look at things like the hidden hand or the Illuminati bringing evil and division and separation and war and disease and hunger and starvation and all of this onto the world. Why is that so? Because if it's pressed on you, if it's pushed on you, if it's forced down your mouth, if it's forced down your neck, if it's forced down your throat, you'll repel the other fucking way. You won't want it. You'll have the experience of hurt, of pain, of separateness, of hunger, of lust, of all of these terrible, negative, distorted frequencies and vibrations, and it won't feel good to you. It's out of balance. It's out of harmony with you. And you'll repel in the other direction, and you'll attract towards things that are enlightening. You'll attract towards things that are empowering, that are beautiful, that are full of love. Or you should. Or you should. And see, a lot of people, we get these perverse ideologies, especially in New Age and spiritual communities and all of this, that teach you that selfishness is the only way to go. And, you know, if I feel like we've learned anything together over the years, it's that service to self, you know, it only goes so far. Right? We make ourselves better to be a better part of the whole, to serve one another better. You know? And too often we use spirituality as an excuse to be stingy, to be selfish, to be cruel, to be callous, to be cold. To only worry about us and our existence. Like I'm loving myself, so I'm turning my back on this person, or I won't help this person because I'm loving myself. And it's like, you know, when are we going to stop, you know, using spirituality to manipulate the world and do it, you know, natural way, and do it by lifting one another up, and do it by serving others? And that's why, you know, I feel like religion got as powerful as it did. Because at one point, I feel like religion was designed to do that. It was creating communities and fellowship, and, you know, and it had a good effect. Even if it was an exoteric, you know, way to control the masses. You know? You got to think about children. In an age of Horus, they're children. Spiritually. Children mentally. Children emotionally. We, humanity, children. And what happens when you take away all the structure? When the cat's away, the mice will play, right? So when we got freedom and liberty, what do? We fucking damn near destroy ourselves. We murder, we kill, we get on drugs, we prostitute, and all of this because we don't have the monarchical societies of old, where the monarch was divinely, his or her divine rulership came through God. They held the mysteries, the rules, and they created rules and laws, and they were enforced. Because children had to be babysat, they had to be watched, they had to be told how to live and operate and function within a society to understand the mechanisms and moving parts, that way it could function and coexist peacefully. Still, people did shit, but they knew if they did shit, they would suffer. And now, as people get more and more freedom, what's happening? You know, they become more and more base, more and more distorted, right? More and more tending towards self-destruction because they don't know what to do with it. If you gave a kid total freedom right now, what would they do? They'd probably get themselves hurt or killed, right? A child that isn't ready, that hasn't been prepared, that hasn't been groomed for it. You know? Same thing within a society and a collective standpoint. You know. They haven't been ingrained with the moral values. They haven't been ingrained with the spiritual ethics that it takes. You know, to learn self-mastery and how to rule over oneself and dominion and manifest in a beautiful way for themselves and others. Right now, if you gave all the mysteries to everybody in the world, what would they do? What would people do if they knew black magic everywhere? And had the ability to curse and hex and kill and all of that? It would be an ugly fucking place, would it not? How many people do you know are so emotionally and spiritually and mentally immature that just because you pissed them off, if they had the ability to, just to spite you, they would hex you and take your life away, or curse you and block your finances? Or people do it now because they don't like shit people say. You know, and these are people who have studied these things, and that's why we're never given anything before we're ready. So many people think, like, through these sacrifices and these distorted, you know, base, debaucherous teachings and ways of looking at things, that they're going to somehow, you know, be granted this eternal wisdom and power, and it just isn't so. The more they harm and hurt others is the more harm and hurt they do to themselves, and they don't understand the connection because they're those children of Belial, right? They're pure separateness. They believe they're separate. You know, but those children of the light understand how it works. They wouldn't dare put that out, you know, on others. They've ascended past the childishness, They're those that are, the big brother to society and kind of guiding everyone along the way now. And that's you. You watching this video, you are probably a mentor to a lot of people spiritually, whether you know it or not. You're a leader spiritually, whether you know it or not. It's on you on whether or not you're going to accept that responsibility and take accountability for yourself and what you're putting out there, though. And are you going to sow into people and things and projects and so on and so forth that raise the planet's vibration and raise consciousness and bring awareness and shed light and bring love? Are you going to continue to be self-seeking in all that you do? That's a choice we all have to make based upon our values and what we value. But that's part of the maturation process in that age of horse by becoming the child into the man. The adult. We're getting the chance to grow up now. That's why in the age of Aquarius, you see it's on the air. The prince of the power of the air. That's where thoughts go. Right? That's the consciousness, the air. And what's he doing? He's carrying a pail of water. He is no longer, drowning in the deluge, the great flood, right? In the waters. He's learned to walk on it, and now he's mastering it. He's carrying it with him into his house, into his temple. Right? These allegories and these metaphors are far deeper than most people ever have thought in previous times. But now we have that increase in awareness and knowledge to be able to understand them. Upon time and space is written the thoughts, the deeds, the activities of an entity as in relationships to its environs. Its hereditary influence as directed or judgment drawn by or according to what the entity's ideal is. Hence, as it has been oft called, the record of God's book of remembrance, and each entity, each soul, as the activities of a single day of an entity in the material world, either makes same good or bad or indifferent depending upon the entity's application of self. So depending on your application of self, depending on how you fucking apply yourself, how you choose to behave, how you choose to master yourself or not, that's your impact on the world. So many people, will sit in church and give money to the collection plate when it passes and shit because others are watching. They want to be seen doing their good deeds, but, how many people sit behind a computer screen and never fucking help anyone in their entire lives? And anyway, never say a kind word, never help an old lady cross the street, never give to any cause, because nobody's there to see it. We got to understand that it doesn't matter who's watching or, it's for us. Everything we do is for us. Every bit of learning, every bit of giving, every bit of loving is for us. We're sowing into ourselves. So we can sow into our creation and make it better. Not just for us, but for every generation that follows. We don't want to continue to repeat these cycles and taste destruction every time that we reach a pinnacle. We want to transcend this now. And transcend this dimension. Transcend this reality. Now, we're going to go to the Spiritism here. Is it people's fault that the keys to the kingdom has been kept from them after being programmed by the same oligarchy? Is it people's fault? Seek and you shall find. Is it people's fault that they never have sought those keys? Yeah. It is. It is. If their heart desired it, it would manifest. Their lives would be guided towards it. you know. But because that's not of value to them, they lust of the flesh and of what they can do for themselves and all of that, you know, the accolades of this world. That's what their life is drawn to. That's the path that they go down. They choose that consciously by what's important to them, what feels good to them, what they chase after, you know. So no matter what the oligarchy is doing, it's neither here nor there. You know, you've resisted the influence of the oligarchy, have you not? You've resisted the influence of the machine, of Big Brother, because you chose to. You chose to pursue more enlightening endeavors, more spiritual matters. You chose to be, and I know you for a fact, James, who just, you know, put that question in there. I know you for a fact really do. You live this shit, you know, like you live it, you know, and that's why you receive it, you know, and you get it, and all that you do and say, and your interactions and your posts online. It's like, you know, you're breathing it, you're exuding it, and it's returning to you. It's in every fiber of your being, and it may have not always been that way. But there was always a desire for it, and you were always being guided or led down that path because you truly desired that. It was who you are, you know, what's inside, what's in your heart, what's in your soul that has led you down the path you're on, you know. And you'll continue to go on this path as long as you desire it, as long as you pursue it. And everybody has that opportunity to pursue it, no matter what they've been fed by the machine. You know, they're the ones who chose to ingest that bullshit. They're the ones who chose to place value on bullshit. You know? And that's why they're called profane. That's why they're called useless eaters. You know, and truth is, they're just very spiritually immature. You know? They're babies, spiritually. You know, they're not old souls like you. You know, so they just want what they want when they want it. They don't care how it affects others or how it affects the world or who they hurt or, you know, or giving back or none of that. You know, it's like, I see these people in the comment sections and shit on videos where it's like, you know, they don't understand the value of energetic exchange on any level, you know. Right now, we're having a fair energetic exchange. I'm putting a video together, creating something, putting my time, energy, effort into it. And as a result, you're giving me your attention and questions, and you'll like it and share it. Some of you will donate and stuff like that. It's an energetic exchange. These people feel entitled to others' energy. They feel entitled to everything. That is that separateness consciousness taking ownership of all. You know, as if they deserve it. It's theirs. It's mine. And when you start believing that, you become like that elitist mentality where you think that another person's life is yours to sacrifice. Right? It's like, no, you know, they're my sacrifice. They're sacrificing children, and they're doing this, and they're, you know, bringing fear, destruction, death, poverty, disease on so many others to benefit themselves. You know, and I know it sounds really small, but when you can't even understand the small concept of energetic exchange, you know, fair energetic exchange, it's because you don't see it that way. You know, you see, it's an entitled mentality, and these people, these elites, and they're not elites, but this elitist mentality, that's what it is. It's just entitled. To where I'm taking ownership of God. I'm taking ownership of spirit. I'm taking ownership of me. I'm taking ownership of everything. You know, it's the ego. Mine, mine, mine. Me, me, me. You know. And we see a lot of people in today's generation that are growing up that way. You know, they're polarized that way. You know, because they're told that that's how you get somewhere, that that's what makes you ambitious, that that's what makes you excel, that that's what makes you succeed, that that's what makes you strong. But it's the opposite. It makes you weak. It makes you susceptible to so much, and it makes you fall. Now we're going to look at Spiritism here, kind of coming off the back of this. True that? Yeah, bro. It is good to see all of you guys tonight. I do, and Kimberly, thank you so much. You do an awesome job at moderating, for real. Spiritism, or Spiritist doctrine, or Cardicism, or Cardicist Spiritism, is a reincarnationist doctrine established in France in the mid-19th century by the author and educator Allan Kardec. And it explains from a Christian perspective the cycle by which a spirit supposedly returns to material existence after the death of the old body in which it has dwelled, as well as the evolution it undergoes during this process. The concept also interacts with philosophical and scientific conceptions of the relationship between the physical and the moral. Cardicism emerged as a new religious movement branched from the spiritualistic field. The notions and practices associated with spiritual communication disseminated throughout North America and Europe since the 1850s. Kardec coined the term Spiritism in 1857 and defined it as the doctrine founded on the existence, manifestations, and teachings of spirits. Although not recognized as a science, Kardec claimed that Spiritism combines scientific, philosophical, and religious aspects, seeking a better understanding not only of the tangible universe, but also of the universe beyond transcendence. After observing and analyzing the phenomena of table turning, Professor Rival was intrigued by the fact that the table could move despite lacking muscles or provides answers without having a brain. It was allegedly the very agent causing the phenomena who responded, "It is not the table that thinks, it is us, the souls of the men who have lived on earth." Rival then proceeded to study this and other phenomena such as incorporation and mediumship. The doctrine is based on 5 basic works known as the Spiritual Codification, which I have, published by Kardec between 1857 and 1868. The codification consists of the Spirit's Book, the Medium's Book, the Gospel according to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, and the Genesis. Additionally, there are the so-called complementary works such as What is Spiritism, Spiritist Review, and posthumous works. Its followers consider Spiritism a doctrine focused on the moral improvement of humanity and believe in the existence of a single God, the possibility of useful communication with spirits through mediums, and reincarnation as a process of spiritual growth and divine justice. According to the International Spiritist Council, Spiritism is present in 36 countries with over 13 million followers, being most widespread in Brazil, which has approximately 3.8 million followers according to the data from the Brazilian Institute. Okay, so, interesting, right? Interesting. When we look at this Spiritist movement, right, and this codification that's published by Kardec, we are essentially talking about something very similar, to what Cayce believed. How the soul, in essence, death isn't the end. It's returning for multiple cycles. And we have the ability to tap into alternate parts of the ether or reality and communicate with these fragments of ourselves or essence, spiritual essence of ourselves that previously inhabited a form and will inhabit a form again. So let's jump here. We're going to look at some of these different books. I've got some chapters from each of these Spiritist books pulled up in the codification. And we're going to look at some of these. This comes out of Heaven and Hell. Right, the Spiritist Book of Heaven and Hell. And this is chapter 5, and it's on purgatory. And I feel like these are just some of the more interesting things that I found, when it comes to this. So, You can believe what you want. I'm not here to convince you one way, shape, form, facet of any school of thought or belief system. Matter of fact, I don't believe in organized religion or politics or any of that, I believe the Spirit, God, all of that comes from within. We're all connected to it, and that all religions and all of everything is a piece of that, and expressing that and explaining that. Right? So, purgatory. The Gospels make no mention of purgatory, a doctrine that was only accepted by the Church in 593. It is incontestably a more rational dogma and more in accord with the justice of God than is hell, for it establishes less harsh penalties and allows for the redemption of less serious wrongs. The principle of purgatory is thus founded on equity, because if compared to human justice, it resembles temporary detention rather than a life sentence. After all, what would we think of a country that imposed the death penalty for all crimes, even simple misdemeanors? Without purgatory, there are only two extremes for souls: supreme bliss or eternal torture. According to such a theory, however, what happens to souls who are guilty only of petty wrongs? Either they must share in the bliss of the elect without having been perfected, or suffer the punishment of the worst criminals without having committed such evil. That would be neither just nor reasonable. And think about this. God casting his net or his magnetic field, gathering us together, because we are magnetic in essence, our energy, pulling our energy together and purifying us, refining us by the fires of affliction, allowing us to become afflicted through our karmic debts, right? The things that we have created in the world, returning to us, reaping what we have sown, right? Getting our just fruits, our just desserts, which then purify us, refining us by the fires of affliction, making us pure like gold, right? Gold being spirit or the heavens, right? And we see in Rosicrucianism, Hermeticism, the Golden Dawn, lots of different schools of thought talk about this spiritual alchemy, converting the iron into gold. Right, and when we look at the different base metals for the planets and all of that, this isn't exactly a physical alchemizing that's taking place. It's more of a soul-based, right? That's why when we look at, the Beast of Daniel, it talks about, iron mixed with miry clay, right? So this is like machine, So just saying, try to understand. We have many different ways of looking at this, but all these books are essentially saying the same things to us one way, shape, form, or another. Now, however, the idea of purgatory was necessarily incomplete, because knowing only punishment by fire, purgatory was conceived as an attenuated version of hell. Hence, souls in purgatory also burn, but in a less intense fire. And since progress is incompatible with the dogma of eternal punishment, souls in purgatory cannot free themselves by improving themselves, but only by prayers, which are said for them, or which are paid for to be said on their behalf. And if the idea was good at first, the same does not apply to its consequences, i.e., the abuses it caused. The paying for prayers transformed purgatory into a more profitable gold mine than hell. How about that? And this is where the whole intercession thing comes in as well. The location of purgatory, the nature of the penalties endured there were never determined. It was reserved for the new revelation to fill in this gap by explaining the causes of the earthly miseries of life, for which only the plurality of existences could possibly show us justice. Such miseries necessarily result from the imperfections of the soul, since if it were already perfect, it would neither commit any wrongs nor have to suffer their consequences. And we're told that we're made, perfect in the image and all this. And it's like, well, if that was true, then we'd never come here and do any stupid shit. Those who on earth are completely sober and moderate, for example, will not suffer infirmities arising from excess. Most of the time, people are misfortunate because of their own fault. However, if they are imperfect, it must be because they were that way before coming to earth. And if that's true, if you're perfect before coming to earth, then one could surmise that God made you that way. And that everything you do, God's okay with. Right? Or, it is a constant process or continuation. Right? So, wherever you finished in the last life, you come in like that. And strive towards, attaining perfection. However you want to look at it. But it'd be unjust for God to punish you if He made you fucked up. I don't even make no sense. So, just saying, these are things to think about, when you're talking to people, especially about doctrines, dogmas, and religions. Now, the vicissitudes they experience are temporary correction and a warning as to the imperfections they must yet eliminate in order to avoid evil and progress toward the good. They are the lessons of the experience for the soul. They seem cruel at times, but the deeper the impression they leave, the more profitable they are for the future. These vicissitudes give incessant rise to the struggles that develop intellectual and mental powers and faculties. Through these struggles, the soul reinvigorates itself morally and always triumphs after having courageously borne them until the end. The prize for victory is to be found in the spirit of life, to which the soul radiantly and triumphantly enters like a soldier who has stood out in battle and now receives a garland. So it's like, and some people believe, and I believe we talked about this in one of the videos, how, to receive your light body, your primordial self, your higher self, it's essentially like a gradual attainment, an improvement upon each life, each orbit, each cycle, until you've reached a certain point, and then, you've hit that perfection, and you stay in perfection. And that's where we get, Maitreya's and all of this from, and Buddhas and shit that are, in essence, not even supposed to be real souls. They're people that have perfected themselves and are sending a copy of themselves back to teach the others on how to do the same thing. So, each lifetime, an opportunity is presented to the soul to enable it to take a step forward. And in astrology, your south node and your north node, right? We know that these are like, the soul wounds you overcome and what you're moving towards and all of this. So astrology can help you discover what your purposes are. Now, and if you'd like to book an astrology reading, text or email. The length of the step forward depends on its will, which enables it to rise several degrees or to remain in the same place. In the latter case, it will have wasted the opportunity, and since it will have to pay its debts sooner or later, it will have to restart a new existence under even more dolorous conditions, because to any blemish it has not eradicated, it adds another. Now think about that. If you can be tricked in your life to forego your opportunities to grow and get better, then it compounds on you. And this is what we would call familiar curses and shit. Where it's like, you weren't able to overcome your soul lesson, so it compounded, and now you have more lessons to learn in the next life, and before you know it, you're impoverished and cursed all the way through, and so is your seed, because they're all part of the same soul, and none of y'all have worked towards, righting the wrongs or balancing out your energies or self-mastery, according to this. Now, therefore, it is through successive incarnations, that the soul rids itself of all of its imperfections. It purges them. in a word, until it is sufficiently pure to merit being set free from the worlds of expiation to go to happier ones, leaving behind these still further on to partake of supreme bliss. And, that would mean that at a certain point, you don't even return back here. You go to a new dimension, a new world altogether, and experience heaven, eternal life. This is what we're being prepared for, And when it talks about us leaving the third to the fourth dimension by working our intellect and our thoughts, is that why? So we can go to a dimension that's created strictly through thought and experience in that way, where we create the dream entirely. And in order to create a perfected dream like that, to kind of reside in, eternally or for a very long period of time, we have to work out all the kinks and all the darkness so we don't trap ourselves in a sort of hell, into misery. So consequently, purgatory is not some vague and uncertain notion. It is a physical reality that we can see, touch, and endure. It is found on worlds of expiation, and earth is one of them. On earth, people expiate their past and present for the good of their future. However, contrary to the normal idea on the matter, it depends on each man or woman to shorten or prolong his or her stay in this world, according to the degree of evolution and purity attained through self-effort. We do not leave it behind by having completed a certain amount of time or because of the merits of other people, but by our own merit, according to the words of Christ, to each according to his deeds, words that wholly sum up the justice of God. Therefore, you reap what you sow, right? Therefore, those who suffer, and and people get butthurt as fuck when you tell them to sow good seeds. They get defensive. They're like, I am sowing good seeds. It's like, are you sowing good seeds with others? Because when you do for others and do unto others, it's actually doing unto yourself. If we went around blessing, giving, loving, helping others all the time, our life would be fucking amazing. When we share wisdom onto others, we're multiplying the wisdom that we receive back. When we give gifts and help to others, we're multiplying the gifts and things we receive back. Right? We're doubling it up. Same thing when we give and do bad shit to people. You're not just doing it to that person, you're doing it to yourself as well. It's going to return to you the same way that you put it out. Now, we do not leave it behind by having completed a certain amount of time or because of the merits of other people, but by our own merit, according to the words of Christ, to each according to his deeds. Words that wholly sum up the justice of God. Therefore, those who suffer in this life can tell themselves that it is because they did not sufficiently purify themselves in their previous existence. And if they do not do so in this one, they will suffer further in the next. This is at the same time both equitable and logical, since suffering is inherent to perfection. One suffers for as long as one is imperfect, just as a sick person suffers a long as he or she does not eliminate the cause of illness. Thus, it is that as long as who are proud remain so, they will suffer the consequences of pride. As long as they are selfish, those of selfishness. Due to its imperfections, a guilty spirit first suffers in the spirit life. Afterward, a corporeal life is given to it as a means of reparation. It is for this reason that it finds itself either with the person whom it has offended previously, in surroundings similar to those which it had practiced evil, or in situations opposite those it had experienced. For example, poverty, if it had used wealth badly, or humiliation if it had been proud. Expiation in the world of spirits and on the earth does not comprise a double punishment. Punishment on the earth complements the punishment begun in the spirit world and acts to facilitate progress through effective labor. It depends on the spirit to take advantage of the opportunity. Isn't it better for it to return to earth with the possibility of gaining heaven than to be condemned without remission once it has left the earth behind? The granting of this freedom is proof of the wisdom, the goodness, and the justice of God, who wants all human beings to put forth all their efforts to be the artisans of their own future. If they are unhappy for a shorter or longer amount of time, they have no one to complain about but themselves. For the way of progress is always open to them. Wow. If we consider how great the suffering is of certain guilty spirits in the invisible world, how terrible the situation is for some of them there, to what miseries they have become prey, and how painful the situation is for them because of their inability to foresee the end of their suffering, then we could say that they actually are in hell. If such a word did not imply the idea of an eternal and physical punishment. However, thanks to the Spirit's revelation and the examples they offer us, we know that the length of expiation depends on the betterment of the wrongdoer. Wow. Interesting. And it's saying like hell in essence is because you've accumulated so much bad fucking karma, right? And you have willfully ignored, all of the things that you continue to do to where you can't see the end of suffering. You're paying for it that long to where there's no fucking end in sight. That would be akin to hell. Interesting. Yeah, well, they say money is the root of all evil. James, I see your comment here. So I used to make good money, but it didn't do me any good because I didn't know myself then while in survival mode. And yeah, me as well. But I feel like, money isn't the root of all evil, but money does amplify, things about us. So it's like, if you have issues and shit, with money puts your problems under a microscope. If you're a drug addict, for instance, you have all kinds of money, your problems get worse. You do more drugs. If you have a problem, being promiscuous, and money gives you access to more people, to do more things, to meet more, it's just going to amplify, what already exists and bring attention and put under the microscope what's already going on, So, people can do beautiful things with money too. And so many people, they look at it as evil, but it's energy, it's currency, it's a current, That energetic exchange I was talking about. So it's like when we do good things, we're using it for good energy, with it. And when we're in a good state, having money won't turn you evil. It's going to amplify or put under the microscope your good work because you're going to use it for good. You're going to use it to help. You're going to use it to give. You're going to use it, for things that add to the world, not take away. Now, moving forward. Right, now. And I do believe that, wholeheartedly. Just because I went through ups and downs, financially. I really have. And years ago, I made, a lot of money. And that's what it did, was it like, I felt like it really brought attention to my flaws and my defects. And those parts of myself, damn near got out of control, because they got so big. Because they were being amplified by that energy. So. Now, moving forward. Okay, next is visual manifestations. Now, this comes from the Medium's book. Like I said, these are all books that come out of the Spiritism. So, let me see too. I don't know if I can drop this in the chat. I'll try. I don't know if you guys can pick this up or not, or if it's on my computer. So, if you can, awesome. If not, I apologize. So, I don't think you can. Alright, here we go. Questions concerning apparitions, a theoretical essay on apparitions, globular spirits, and the hallucination theory. So, we're going to learn about orbs and shit like that. And we'll do this and then we'll start, wrapping things up, I guess. We've been going for a while. Alright. Questions concerning apparitions. Of all spirit manifestations, the most interesting are undoubtedly those in which spirits can render themselves visible. From an examination of this type of phenomenon, we will see that, like all the others, there is nothing at all supernatural about it. First, we will provide the responses by the spirits on the subject. Can spirits render themselves visible? Yes, especially during sleep. However, certain individuals can also see them while awake, although that is less frequent. While the body rests, the spirit loosens the material ties, becomes freer, and can more easily see other spirits and communicate with them. A dream is only a recollection of this state. When we remember nothing, we say that we have not dreamed at all, but the soul has, nevertheless, seen and enjoyed its liberty. Here we are dealing more particularly with apparitions that occur during the waking state. Now think about that. That does make some sense now. When we're asleep, and our consciousness is focused, with our eyes shut, so we're in that third eye state, not the physical eyes, right? And we're inside of ourselves in that astral realm, in that pure place of creation, in our temple. The soul or the spirit loosens, right? It's not attached to the physical body so much. It's in that ethereal state. So it has the ability to see other spirits easier. And a lot of people, when they experience demonic attachments or speak to dead family members and all of those kind of things, it happens to them while they're asleep. So we know that does make a lot of sense. And some people can see it while they're still awake as well. Do spirits who visibly manifest themselves belong more to one specific category than to another? No. They can belong to all the categories, the highest down to the lowest. Are all spirits permitted to manifest themselves visibly? All may do so, but they do not always receive permission or even desire to. For what purpose do they manifest themselves visibly? It depends on their nature. Their purpose may be either good or evil. Now think about that. A dark, negative spirit that wants to feed off of your energy and attach to you, may come to you in your dreams as your dead dad or something. So you'll open up and talk and communicate and create a energetic connection or tie to this thing. And then after the connection is made and it's latched onto your energy, it being a negative entity needing, fear and things like that to run, then will start manifesting itself in ways that scare you, right? Because now it's connected, now it's attached, it needs to feed, Right? So it'll start manifesting itself in ways that are going to bring, fear, that are going to make you jump and get scared and, doubt and depressed and all of that, depending on what type of entity it is and what it correlates to. It would be allowed to test those to whom they appear. Thus, the spirit's intention may be evil, but the result may be good. What is the purpose of spirits who render themselves visible with evil intentions? They appear out of a desire to frighten, and often out of revenge. How about that? I just said that, Usually when they're doing that, trying to scare you, it's because they want the fear. They want to frighten you. They want to connect to you. They want to feed off of you. And, the revenge thing, it's, it could also be when they appear out of a desire to frighten, often out of revenge. Right? Like, is this something that, they feel disrespected by the way that you have engaged with them or spoken to them or addressed them or, interesting. What is the purpose of spirits who appear with good intentions? It is to console those who are mourning their departure in order to prove to them that they continue to exist and are close by. They might also appear to give advice and sometimes to ask for assistance for themselves. Next one. What harm would there be if the possibility of seeing spirits were permanent and widespread among human beings? Wouldn't that be a way to remove all doubt from the minds of disbelievers? Since human beings are constantly surrounded by spirits, it would be troublesome and would hamper them in their daily activities if they could see spirits all the time. It would also, in most cases, take away their initiative. While on the other hand, if they believe that they are alone, they will act more freely. As for disbelievers, there are many other means available for them to be convinced if they would take advantage of them, and if they were not blinded by pride. You are well aware that there are people who have seen but do not believe, nonetheless, because they say that they have experienced an illusion. Do not be concerned about such people. God is responsible for them. It would be very inconvenient if we were able to see spirits about us all the time. It would be like seeing the air that surrounds us, or the myriad of microscopic animals that swarm around us. From this, we must conclude that what God has done is well done, and that God knows better than we do what is best for us. If being able to see spirits might be inconvenient, why is it permitted in certain cases? To provide proof that everything does not end with the death of the body, and that the soul retains its individuality after death. This temporary glimpse is enough to provide such proof and to attest the presence of your friends at your side, but it is not as inconvenient as being able to see them all the time would be. And I don't know if that technically provides proof of individuality, because, if we're part of an infinite or a oneness, that oneness, in essence, has plugged into every individual mask that we call a persona, or a person, an ego. Right? So it would be able to mimic or put on any one of those masks and pretend to be an individual, right? And that's what demons do a lot of time, is they pretend to be people they're not by mimicking, And if it's a spirit not attached to the physical, then anything that was, in essence, aligned with its vibration or its frequency, it would be able to, tap into and display to you as if it was that, Just my opinion. Excuse me. On more highly evolved worlds in our own, are spirits seen more frequently. It says the more humans approach their spirit nature, the easier it becomes for them to communicate with spirits. It's because your bodies are so dense that it is rarer and more difficult to perceive ethereal beings. And 10. Is it reasonable to be frightened at the apparition of a spirit? It says, anyone who reflects on the matter will understand that a spirit, whatever it may appear as, is less dangerous than a living person. Moreover, spirits go everywhere, and you do not have to see them in order to know that they are at your side. A spirit who desires to harm someone can do so more surely without being seen. A spirit is not dangerous because it's a spirit, but because of the influence it can exert upon a person's thoughts, drawing him or her away from the good and pushing him or her toward evil. People who are afraid of the dark and of being alone rarely comprehend the cause of their fear. They would not know what to say if asked what they are afraid of, but they should certainly be more afraid of meeting other human beings and spirits, because an evildoer is more dangerous while alive than after death. A lady whom we know saw an apparition one night in her room. It was so well defined that she believed that there was actually someone present. Her first sensation was terror. However, upon assuring herself that there was no one else, she said to herself, "It looks like it was only a spirit, so I can sleep in peace." Can anyone who sees a spirit talk to it? Certainly. And that is exactly what should be done in such a case. Ask the spirit who it is, what it wants, and what can be done for it. If it is unhappy and suffering, show sympathy will bring it relief. If it is a benevolent spirit, it may intend to offer good advice. In such cases, how will the spirit respond? Sometimes by articulating sounds as a living person would, but usually by transmitting its thoughts. Do spirits who appear to have wings really have them, or are they only a symbolic appearance? Spirits do not have wings, they do not need them, since as spirits they can go anywhere. But they appear in this form in order to impress the person to whom they show themselves. Some appear wearing their normal clothing, others in drapery, and some with wings as a characterization of the spiritual category they are representing. Are the persons we see while dreaming always who they appear to be? They are almost always the same ones. Your spirit goes to meet them, or they come to meet you. Couldn't deceptive spirits take on the appearance of someone dear to us in order to mislead us? They take on fantastic appearances only in order to have fun at your expense, but there are matters that they are not allowed to play with. And that's what happened to me, guys. So, years ago, back before YouTube and spirituality and all of that, I was a drug addict. I had this best friend that kind of just, mentored me a lot. He was older than me. Showed me, how to be a good man, a good father, and stay clean and all this stuff. He had went through, all the stuff I went through. Been to prison, the whole nine. He was sick, and he lived next door to me. Back then I was kind of an atheist, and I remember us having a conversation, and basically saying whoever died first, we'd come back and tell the other one, if there was a heaven or hell, or if there was a God and all of that. Lo and behold, this guy ends up dying, like very shortly after that, maybe days even. And after that, I tried to communicate with him with a digital audio recorder like I had seen on, Ghost Adventures and shit back in the day. And I turned off all the lights, midnight, I'm alone one night. I'm like, please tell me your name. and I heard 3 knocks on the wall, and then I felt this cold rush of air walk through me. I didn't hear anything with my physical ears, and I played this, recorder back, and it was, he was like a big guy, and he sounded a particular way. He had a very distinct voice, and it was him. It was like, Kevin. It was his voice, or what it sounded like, his voice. So I got giddy, after playing this. Like, my best friend, I can talk to him. And what ended up happening was I had opened up something in my house, and it wasn't him. It was like a demonic entity. And this thing proceeded to torture me for like the next fucking year. I mean, it was every night I'd have night terrors. This thing would hit me, scratch me, slap me. I mean, it's killing my cats. I mean, this thing was making my children sleepwalk. This was a nasty, nasty entity. And I ended up getting, my house blessed and all this stuff, and got this, attachment off of me. And after that is like what made me even believe in God. It was like, well, if this evil exists, then I know good exists too. And, if this anointed oil and all these things, these rituals they did to remove this thing from me actually worked, then it must mean God is real. And that started me down the spiritual path. I started with church and stuff like that, and then once I started asking questions about, the Bible and studying that, and I got discouraged from asking questions, that's when I kind of struck out on my own, and started a podcast, and then the podcast had a lot of success, and then I started a YouTube channel, and this was all in between that. Had a insane dream, an experience, really changed my life though, and it started by, talking to spirits. They take on fantastic appearances in order to have fun at your expense, but there are matters they are not allowed to play with. Since thought is a kind of evocation, we can understand that we can induce a spirit to appear. But why is it that the persons whom we think about the most and whom we most ardently desire to see again almost never appear to us in our dreams, while we often see others who do not interest us in the least and whom we never think about? It is not always possible for spirits to show themselves visibly, even in dreams, and in spite of your desire to see them, causes apart from their will may prevent them. Besides, it is almost always a trial, which even your most ardent desire cannot avert. As for individuals who do not interest you, it is possible that they are thinking of you, even though you're not thinking of them. Moreover, you have no idea about relationships in the spirit world, where you might meet up with a multitude of close, old, and new acquaintances whom you have no memory of at all, and while awake. And finally it says, when there is no means of verifying visions or apparitions, we can almost certainly treat them as being only hallucinations. However, when they are confirmed by the circumstances, we cannot attribute them to our imagination. Such are, for example, apparitions at the time of death, while asleep or awake, involving persons whom we had not been thinking about, and who by various signs have come to reveal the absolutely unexpected circumstances of their passing. In such instances, we have seen horses rear up and balk before apparitions that frighten their riders. Imagination may be something that humans are endowed with, but the same cannot be said for animals. Moreover, if the images we see while dreaming are always a result of our waking concerns, that would not explain why we hardly ever dream of the matters that we have been thinking about the most. And think about that, it's not the same for animals, and they don't have that creative power. And these demon or fallen spirits that solidify their reality with animals, like we talked about in the beginning, that's why they mimic right? They don't have the ability to create, you know. They just have the ability to copy. So I find that incredibly interesting. Well, that's worse than what happened to you. Well, it's not a contest, but yeah, I know a lot of people's been through shit. You know, with demonic entities and shit like that. When you're not afraid to explore, you know, and I'm not. I've explored a lot. I had a sex ritual once backfire on me big time. Got with a girl, you know, thought she was like my soulmate and all that shit, and this is a few years back, really loved the girl, or, you know, whatever, and we were really tight, and I didn't understand back then that you don't do rituals on eclipses, because they're so chaotic. And I did sex magic with you know, my girlfriend at the time, and it was to bring like good things into our life. Is what it was. It was just to like use the power of love, really, and that energy to bring in good things. And because I didn't know what I was doing, it ended up like fucking cursing this relationship and like, you know, backfiring and blowing up in my face, and you know, I was like karmically tied, and it was just terrible, man. It was terrible. And I've had people also that watch the channel that don't like me, you know, send me cursed objects and stuff like that as well too. So I've had a lot of experience, you know, with these kind of things. That's really why I don't, you know, engage too much in a lot of the things I used to. And really why I went into studying a lot of the things that I did was to free myself from, you know, the witchcraft of others and the system and the spiritual attacks of the world. You know, I wanted to be free of that. I didn't want to be hindered by other people, and I didn't want people to just be able to attack me and, you know, fuck my life up and my energy up. You know, I wanted to learn how to protect myself. And I wanted to understand how it worked. That way I wasn't making things worse. And along the way, you know, curiosity killed the cat, you know, so my curiosity got the best of me a few times, and when it did, you know, I learned some really, really valuable lessons that just changed me, you know, as a person, you know, and like who I am, just changed me. You know, made me wiser every time. And I guess stronger and better for it in some ways too. But you also lose innocence. You know, you lose that innocence when you're oblivious to a lot of these things. You know, you live in a different world and a different reality. You know, and the rules don't seem like they apply to you as much. You know, but you can't unknow. Like so many people, they watch my videos and videos like this, and then they turn this video off and they act like nothing of what they've just seen still applies once the video ends. And it's like, for lack of knowledge, surely my people will perish, meaning like, you know, this knowledge could save your life. You know, like understanding how things work and like what you're actually doing to yourself by behaving and making the choices you make, like, and choosing to ignore your flaws and your darkness. And it's like, and a lot of people, you know, if I point out something and they feel offended by it, because they themselves embody that particular characteristic or trait. They lash out at me, but it's like, there was an awareness and need to be brought to that part of yourself. That way you can improve it and see it and understand it. It's like we're all fighting at the end of the day to be a better version of ourselves, to overcome ourselves, to overcome the world. And we do that, I swear to you, we do that through kindness, through love, respect, wisdom, the beauty of life, the good things of life, and by being selfless and giving to others and helping others and loving others. Like, there's no other way around it. People put more energy and effort and time into learning how to manipulate people in the world around them than they have ever put into just learning how to do it the right way and have all their desires and dreams come true. They'd rather learn how to cast a spell and trick you out of, what you have, or, instead of get it the right way and get something that actually lasts and blesses them and blesses those around them. So, don't take a shortcut when it comes to spirituality. And, this series, we'll continue to go through a lot of these things. We're going to be looking at ritual magic and the processes of, banishing rituals and all of this, and the order that you have to do these operations in, or you will fuck yourself up. Flat out. But we got to lay groundwork first and start understanding a lot of these things, and that's kind of what's hard. This will probably be the biggest series I ever do. I've got the biggest depth of knowledge on these things, and I try to mix it up to where it's interesting, but also I understand a lot of people out there just don't get this. They don't care. They're more worried about everything else, not their soul, not their spirit, not being a better person, not fanning the flame, within them. And the first video I did in this series did get over 150,000 views on Facebook, though. So I was very happy with that. I really was. It was nice to see that many people respond to something, it's an occult video. It's hard to get people to even watch this shit. They took it down on YouTube, too. I did win my appeals, but they still took my content down, those videos. But I won them. So I got my strikes taken away. And that's how they silence people like me. They pinch me financially to where I can't afford to do this kind of content anymore, and all of that, or they censor me and silence me to where nobody sees me or hears me, and and then you've got so many fucking disinfo agents out there that tell you oh well, if you're spiritual, you shouldn't you shouldn't ask for money or donate to a spiritual person, or they shouldn't do tarot or whatever. It's everything to discredit people, from what's really true. Nobody owns me. Nobody owns me. I'm not under anyone's thumb. I'm under my own. And I operate God, Christ, that's, in the light, and in truth, and sincerity. And it's because I truly care about, people, and I want to do something to contribute to the greater good and to push us in the direction I feel like we've always belonged in the way that we always should have been heading. But I feel like now we are. We're awakening, we're becoming aware, and this is the time as we move into this new age to just be more bold and more beautiful and more awesome and enlightened than we ever have been in the history of humanity. And it's an exciting, exciting time to be alive. So I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching tonight. I know it's late. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, follow. Let me know what you think. Please comment under the videos, Facebook, YouTube. I will do the replay tomorrow and all the other platforms. Check us out, BitChute, Rumble, for our videos that are deleted. If you want access to our uncensored and exclusive content, join us over on Patreon. Please donate support to the channel. That helps me so much. And everybody who does donate support, thank you. Give to give, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Facebook Messenger Pay. Or you can do it for tarot raffle. $3 for entries for a free mini read, $5 for entries for a free personal read, and you can do as many entries as you want. So $20 is 4 entries for the $5, or whatever. New winners announced every Friday. Tyler Cruz was our last winner. Lauren Staggs before that. Brittany C before that. So every winner we give out every week you'd have a new winner. For those who donate and stuff, it's really cool. What else? I am reapplying for monetization, all that. They demonetized us, so I'm trying to bring back subscriptions and everything. Just, please make sure to help me by sharing this to your groups and liking it and sharing and subscribing and following. And like I said, if you can, support the channel. If you want to book a personal tarot reading, text 513-393-2396 or any other business inquiries. And text tarot or email me therealbestdamnpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to check all the links in the description box down below and the ones pinned at the top of the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't catch the beginning, go back and check it. This one should be a good one. Hopefully it goes down in the books as one of the better ones. Alright guys, I love you so much, and I will see you next time. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful night. Peace.